Greetings viewers, EricTheCarGuy here behind the wheel of my turbocharged 4 Fairmont, and I'm going to start this up for the first time in, well, some time. And I thought I'd go over a few things with you about starting a classic car that may have been sitting for a while over the winter like this one has. This one's been sitting for the better part of, I think, 2 or 3 months before I've started it last, and it's been very cold. First thing I did was I charged the battery. That's all charged up and should be ready to go. Also, I checked and topped off the oil, so that is also good to go. I have a manual transmission in mine, and I am absolutely certain that I'm in neutral. I'm not going to be depressing the clutch as I crank the engine, and the reason for that is to try and protect the thrust bearing. I don't want to start it up right away. What I want to do is I want to crank it over until there's oil pressure, which is what I'm about to do now. Now I have the ability with the Fairmont to turn off both the fuel and ignition so that I can make this possible. So as I'm cranking now, I'm just going to crank it and keep an eye on my oil pressure until I have some. It may not be registering it because the way this thing is wired is it's wired not to give me oil pressure, or not to give me gauges until the engine starts. I would think by now that I've got some oil pressure, even though it's not registering on this gauge. As I said, that's probably happening because the way the ignition is wired up. Now I will turn on both the fuel and ignition, and I should be able to crank it up, and it should start up, and I should have oil pressure and all the goodies. So here we go. I do have oil pressure, which I'm happy about. Now I'm going to pull this outside, let it idle a little bit while I air up the tires before I take it out for a drive. Before I roll out on my test drive, I'm going to look around for any leaks. Anything that might be coming out that is important. Make sure that all stays in. Listen for any abnormal noises, anything I don't like. If everything's good, it's time for a drive. When you're on your test drive, you don't need to go for broke. Cold tires. I need to warn you about cold tires because they don't have the same grip as warm tires, so your engine may be happy because it does like cold air, but your tires don't like to be cold. So don't stress it, just cruise along and get all the juices flowing and enjoy the ride. Here's another thing I recommend: long, slow periods of braking. So you've got some braking coming up, just lightly hold the brakes down to try and clean the rust off them that might be there. That sometimes happens when you store a vehicle. You might even notice some grinding as you first apply the brakes the first few times after you go out. This may be the result of this rust that you're trying to eliminate. Hope that helps.